Today's recipe is vegetable sesame noodle stir fry, and it's really easy to make. Stay tuned and I'll show you how. Hello everyone, today's recipe is from our blog, The Red Gingham, which you can find at theredgingham.com. This was posted by Veggie Girl, my co-author in the blog, back in September of 2011. So I hope you find it easy to make as much as I do, and it's really delicious. And stay tuned till the end of the video for some footnotes about this recipe. Now let's get cooking. Our ingredients for this dish will be for 2 to 3 servings. We're going to be needing 1/2 of a medium-sized carrot, 1/2 pound green beans, 1 stalk of green onion, 5 to 6 pieces of cremini mushrooms or white mushrooms, 1/2 of a medium-sized brown onion, 5 cloves of garlic, 1/4 cup low-sodium soy sauce, 2 tablespoons sesame oil, 2 to 3 tablespoons of canola oil, and 1 teaspoon sesame seeds for garnish, which is optional. And lastly, 2 bundles of egg noodles. The first thing we need to do is to julienne the carrots, which is to slice them into thin strips like matchsticks. Next, we're going to trim the ends of the beans. What I do is I push it up against the knife and then trim the ends. Do the other side, push it up against the knife again and trim the ends. And cut them in half. Next is the green onions. Trim off both ends and slice them into small rounds. Slice the mushrooms into thin slices. Next is to slice the ginger into thin but large pieces. I like it large so I can see it on my plate, that way I don't get to chew on it. I can just push it aside. Next, we pound the garlic using the back side of the knife. Remove the skin, trim the bottom end, and slice lengthwise. I'm using a little bit less than half an onion and cut it lengthwise. These are egg noodles. They come in different brands and different shapes and sizes. These are called Canton noodles, and they actually look like thin spaghetti. So just to recap, here are our ingredients: garlic, onion, ginger, green onions, carrots, and of course the green beans, which is not in the picture right now, sesame oil, sesame seeds, and our egg noodles. To cook the noodles, I just follow the instructions on the back of the package, which is really easy. So first, boil a pot of water and then carefully submerge the noodles into the water. These noodles cook very quickly, so after about 15 to 20 seconds, check on them and loosen up the noodles. As you can see, they have softened. So we're using a thong, just loosen them up. And cover it again and let it cook for another 3 minutes. The noodles are now cooked, so pour it in a colander and run cold water on it to rinse it. And this will also prevent it from cooking any further from the remaining heat in the noodles. Set the noodles aside and let it drain a little bit. And drizzle a little bit of sesame oil to prevent it from sticking and also to add a bit of flavor. Now comes the stir fry. I've added about 2 tablespoons of canola oil in the wok. Heat it up and swirl it around. I'm going to put in the hardest vegetable first, which is the carrots. But because these are julienne cut, they're very thin, so it will cook pretty fast. Now, real stir fry is high flame cooking and very, very fast. But since I'm not confident with high fire, I just have this on medium heat and take it slow. And as you can see, there's very little oil in here. Now, because I left my carrots there longer than I should have, I'm gonna set it aside so it doesn't get overcooked. Now I'm going to add a little bit of oil. It's always better to add a little at a time as you need it rather than having too much at once. Next, I'm putting in the ginger ahead of the other vegetables because it takes a while for the ginger to release its flavor. So now we can slowly start adding the rest of the vegetables, starting with the garlic. Wait for the garlic to turn golden brown and add the beans. Mix it all together. And because there's very little oil in here, I'm going to add a little bit of water, maybe about 2 tablespoons. Cover it and let it cook in its steam. Next, I'm going to add only half of the onions. The rest I'm going to add just before it finishes cooking because I love the flavor of raw onions. Using a fork, test the beans occasionally to see if it is cooked. The beans are still hard and the water has dried up a bit, so I'm going to add a little bit more water and cover it for a few more minutes. Now I'm going to add half of the green onions. Then I'm going to push the beans to one side of the wok and add the mushrooms. Beans are not completely cooked at this point, but as I add in the softer vegetables, it will cook. So timing is everything. Now I'm going to add the carrots back in. And the noodles. I'm going to add the noodles a little bit at a time and mix it well together. And lastly, we're going to season it with soy sauce. Again, do this a little bit at a time and taste it as you go. As you season, taste the noodles, see if you need more. And this is the part where I add in the rest of the onions. That way it doesn't get completely cooked and I get the taste of the raw onion. Mix it well together. Maybe just a little bit more soy sauce. And we are done. And lastly, garnish it with green onions and sesame seeds. I hope you enjoyed that recipe, which is really easy to make. I just wanted to point out a few things about how I made that recipe. In the video, I used 4 bundles of the egg noodles, but really I only needed 2. For the amount of vegetables that I use, it's enough that I only use 2 bundles of the egg noodles. But don't worry, the noodles did not go to waste. Since I had leftover vegetables, I was able to create a second batch the following day. All right, and then if you don't like the flavor too much of raw onions as much as I do, you can go ahead and cook them all together rather than separating half of it and putting it towards the end. Just cook the raw onion if you're not ready for that raw onion flavor yet. And then in this recipe, I also substituted it with low sodium soy sauce. If you go to the original recipe on the blog at theredgingham.com, you will find that Veggie Girl used a darker soy sauce, but I wanted to switch down to low sodium soy sauce. Well, plant-based diet experts really want us to cut down on salt, oil, and sugar. So this is one way to tone down that taste before you completely eliminate salt in your diet. Just have a little of it. And you will notice also that in the blog, if you see Veggie Girl's pictures of the noodles, her noodles are slightly darker. But mine are a little pale because I used very little sodium, even though it's already low sodium soy sauce that I used. Also, instead of using salt or soy sauce to flavor my vegetables, I just increased the number of garlic and onions and all the other vegetables. That way, the flavor of the vegetables would stand out and not camouflaged by seasonings. And remember, this is a plant-based diet, so we need to appreciate, or at least right now, learn to appreciate the flavors of vegetables in their most natural form with very little processing. Cooking in itself is a type of processing, so the closer we can get to raw vegetables, the better it is. That's what plant-based diet is. I still like my vegetables cooked. I love to eat cooked vegetables, but I undercook most of it. Whatever vegetables that can be eaten raw, then I try to undercook them. So I hope you enjoyed today's recipe. It's all veggie, it's healthy, and it's tasty. Till next time, thank you for watching.